Mel Tucker is in big trouble at Michigan State. We'll discuss. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Shemon. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We really appreciate it. Of course, we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today we are brought to you by FanDuel. And, of course, the FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more right now. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Mel Tucker has been suspended. We're going to get into all of it. Week 2 had some great games over this past weekend. We'll pull it all together. And, of course, our Big Ten Top 10 observations by me over the weekend. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcast. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. All right. Over the weekend, after all the games were played, some great storylines, Michigan State has suspended football coach Mel Tucker without pay. And I personally think he has coached his last game at Michigan State. Secondary coach Harlan Barnett will be the interim head coach. And get this, former head coach Mark D'Antonio will be the associate head coach until they can figure out what is going on. So what happened? Well, apparently something's been happening for a long time, and we'll come back to that. But a USA Today investigation stated that Mel Tucker has been accused of sexual harassment. And as part of a Title IX investigation at the university, a hearing is scheduled for October. And Tucker, who is in his 4th year as the head coach of the Spartans, remember, he signed that 10-year, $95 million guaranteed contract in 2021. If he is fired for cause, the university would not owe the remaining $80 million on his contract with Michigan State. He is accused of improper behavior, non-consensual behavior while talking on a phone conversation to rape victim and sexual assault victims advocate Brenda Tracy. Documents from the case show that Tucker did not deny the accusations, but he did say that the phone sex was consensual. Tracy, here's the other interesting part of this story. Tracy had been hired by the school on 2 occasions to speak to the football team about sexual violence. And she was even named an honorary captain at the Spartans spring practice in April of 2022. So she's been around the football team. The alleged inappropriate phone call between Tucker and Tracy took place 12 days later after that spring game in 2022. Tracy says that Tucker then canceled a 3rd training session at the school that was scheduled for July of 2022 that she was supposed to be a part of. And the 2 spoke for a final time a little later in August of 2022. So she then felt like she had lost a job here. And so she filed a Title IX complaint in December of 2022. And then Tucker was interviewed by a Title IX attorney in March of 2023. So this has been going on for a while, even though we all just found out about it here this weekend. In fact, the investigation was actually completed in July. The Title IX hearing is now set for October 5th and October 6th. And that, by the way, happens to be the bye week for the Spartans football team. News of these accusations started to spread this weekend just hours after the Spartans beat Richmond 45-14 at East Lansing Saturday to improve to 2-0. Now, no matter what Michigan State ultimately decides to do in this matter, part of the equation will be the fact that this school is still hurting from their past employment of Larry Nassar. Do you remember Larry Nassar? While at Michigan State and while also with Team USA Gymnastics, he was accused of and pled guilty for sexually assaulting gymnasts and other athletes under the guise of medical treatment. In all, at least 265 young girls and young women were victimized here. So in 2017, Nasser was sentenced to 60 years in federal prison. In 2018, Nasser was sentenced an additional 40 to 175 years in a Michigan state prison for additional charges. And then 2 weeks later, Nasser was sentenced to an additional 40 to 125 years in a Michigan state prison for even more charges. So I have another question that I'm thinking about here. Given the school's obvious sensitivity history with sex crimes, it's clear to all of us now after the story has come out, they've known about these accusations for several months. In fact, they were the ones that hired the Title IX investigating attorney in this case. And as I said, this investigation actually concluded in July a couple of months ago, this summer. Yet the school only just now suspends Tucker, and that was only after the investigation was made public because USA Today uncovered it and put it out there. So the timing is strange, but it's going down a bad path quickly, I think, when you think about it here. So like I said, I think Tucker has coached his last game at Michigan State. And even if everything was proven to be consensual in this matter, with the past history of everything going, the sensitivity, I don't know, and the embarrassment of this coming forward, I just don't know how he can move forward and still coach at Michigan State. Tucker was hired from Colorado, you remember, a little more than a week after Mark D'Antonio, the school's all-time winningest coach, decided to retire. And Tucker, through the interview process, you remember, was high. He said this was his dream job, Michigan State. The finalists were Luke Fickell, who withdrew his name from consideration at the time while he was at Cincinnati, and now he's obviously at Wisconsin. And then Robert Saleh, who's now the head coach of the New York Jets. And the Spartans football team, season continues to go on. They will host Washington on Saturday from the former current Pac-12. So that's the latest on that. We'll love your commentary on all of this. Hit me up on Twitter at Talk Big Ten, and also comments here on YouTube. Despite the severity of these accusations, we did have a pretty big weekend of college football and Big Ten football this past weekend. So we'll catch up on all of that as we continue right here on Locked On Big Ten. We are brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Athletic Brewing Company has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make non-alcoholic beers that actually taste great, full of flavor, well-crafted, and it's just like a full-strength beer. In fact, I have some right here. Now, I could actually drink this and nobody would say a word during my podcast because it's non-alcoholic. But here's a citrus flavor that I had sent to the house. It's all very good. Their brews are great tasting, award-winning, and they actually beat out full-strength beers in global competitions. And they brew like over 50 styles of craft, non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs. They've got goldens, sours, more, anything. And they always experiment with new flavors as well. It's a fun company. They're fit for all times. You can drink them anytime, anywhere, and make any activity more enjoyable. I mean, you can watching a big game, watching your kids' game. It's non-alcoholic, right? Even working out if you want to, and you don't get a hangover. So you can find Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. And here, catch this. First-time customers, use the code Locked On, and you'll get 15% off your first online order. That's a pretty good deal to start you out. That's code Locked On, LOCKEDON, at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. All right, so let's get more into what happened in week 2, actual football, with all this breaking news going on everywhere. There was a lot going on. One thing, if you stayed up late on Saturday and you saw the Wisconsin Badgers go out to Washington State as 6-point favorites, mind you, and really had it handed to them, I couldn't help but thinking how Wisconsin was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Think about it. Washington State is a proud program. They think they're worthy of being a Power 5 team. And their Pac-12 has disintegrated around them. And they're one of two teams left with nowhere to go. Nobody wants them. And they feel bad about that because they think they're worthy. They've had a great history and an interesting history. Ryan Leaf and Mike Leach, and you can go on and on. But here's a Big Ten team, and they look at the Big Ten as the reason their conference fell apart. Now a Big Ten team comes out there, and they just want to hand it to them. And that's exactly what they did. That place was lit. The fan base was just gone crazy. The players were ready for it. They wanted to make a statement, and Wisconsin ran into a buzzsaw. We're going to talk about this a little bit more later on in the week on this podcast for sure. Meanwhile, the big story on the football field over the weekend was Nebraska falling to 0-2. They lose to Coach Prime and Deion Sanders and the Colorado Buffaloes. First of all, Nebraska has a huge quarterback problem. Georgia Tech transfer Jeff Sims, he keeps turning the ball over. Plus, he's a one-dimensional quarterback. We went live, by the way, Saturday night on this podcast, John, for the first time ever, and we discussed this. It was a lot of fun. We're going to do more of that on Saturday nights, so be on the lookout for that. But he's got 6 turnovers already in 2 games, and he's a running quarterback who isn't a great passer. And again, turns over the ball. And I was curious if Matt Rhule was going to make a change at halftime. Did any of you think he was going to? I don't know if he had great options and decided to stick with Sin. Look, I get it because you've gone through spring football, you've gone through summer workouts, and now at this point at halftime, the Colorado game, you've had 6 quarters. What are you going to do? Bench them, and then what is that? What do you do? Where do you go from there for the rest of the season? You've put everything into this basket. You've got to make it work, right? Matt Rhule's got to stick with Sims. So I was curious, and I don't like bashing him. He seems like a super nice kid. And he does have some strengths. I mean, he had that 57-yard run to bring him within 13-7 in the third quarter. That's what he does. If he can keep doing that and not turn over the ball, maybe they could make this offense work. But I also got to think of something else, and I want to hear from you Nebraska fans as well. Matt Rhule came in here, and he said, all right, this is the offense we're going to run. It's going to be a quarterback-centric, quarterback-running-centric option offense. Nobody does that anymore except like military schools. And I'm just thinking, is this too outdated? I mean, it's great if you're Nebraska and you're all full of nostalgia, but this isn't how football's played anymore. It's all vertical and downfield, and they're still kind of playing horizontal football. And plus you're putting your quarterback at risk of getting hurt. Nobody does that anymore. I was wondering if this is just too outdated of an offense. Did Matt Rhule make a mistake putting this offense in at Nebraska? Everybody else is passing the ball downfield, and they certainly saw it on the other side with Shedeur Sanders. So, but look, maybe this offense will work if Sims can maybe throw 15 good passes a game and have 0 turnovers. Maybe they'll win, because I'll tell you what, the Nebraska defense is good enough to win football games. They've had 2 good games, I thought, overall. I mean, things kind of fell apart late third, early fourth out in Colorado, but they had a good little more than a half of football. And of course they were pretty good against Minnesota in their season opening loss. So by the way, I don't know that they have any other options. I mean, Heinrich Haarberg, he hadn't played. That was the first time he played quarterback. He played wide receiver. He caught a pass in the Minnesota game. I don't know if you noticed, a 10-yard catch. Comes in, plays quarterback. Look, I think he's capable of running the offense. Haarberg is. He can run the plays. He knows the offense, but he's not nearly the athlete that Sims is. And then the other player, Chuba Purdy, he came in just a little bit. He actually has a little more experience because he played in 6 games last year. A lot of running, not a lot of passing stats. And by the way, Brock Purdy is his brother, the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. So, I don't know if these are better options or not than Jeff Sims. I said the bright spot when we did our live podcast on Saturday night is you got Northern Illinois next. And it's tough because Nebraska started both the first 2 games of the season on the road. 2 road games. They're 0-2. It's tough. It can happen to anybody. Now they're going to come home. You guys always come out. A great crowd out there at Nebraska. And it's Northern Illinois, I think, a winnable game. You take care of the football, you can win that game and maybe take a step forward. Other observations over the weekend: Ohio State beat Youngstown State 35-7, and Kyle McCord had 3 touchdown passes. Marvin Harrison caught 2 touchdowns, so a lot different than what they did in Bloomington week 1, where they were really bogged down and looked out of sync against Indiana. In fact, Harrison had 7 catches, 160 yards, and his 2 touchdowns, looked more like himself. And Emeka Egbuka hauled in 5 catches. He scored a touchdown too. So that part was fixed or improved upon greatly. Devin Brown did play a few series in this one, but if you watch the game, I think the observation here is that there is now starting to be separation between Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. Kyle McCord is going to be the starting quarterback of this Buckeye football team moving forward. They got Western Kentucky coming up next. Maybe Devin Brown plays a little bit more. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe they've decided they're going to decide they got to go Kyle McCord and just get this thing going and get some chemistry together, because they'll win this game against Western Kentucky, but you know who they got next week on the schedule. That's right, Notre Dame. They got to have things going by then. So anyway, those are my observations from that game as well, but I'd like to hear from you as well, again, on Twitter and here on YouTube as well. Some more observations. Kirk Ferentz, congratulations. He won his 200th game as the head coach of the Hawkeyes. They won the Cy-Hawk Trophy against Iowa State. Had to hold on to win. They're starting to build a lead. They couldn't really add to it, and then had to play some pretty darn good defense in the game to hang on to it. The big 4th down stop late. They win 20-13. Cade McNamara didn't look that great to me. Now, I will say he wasn't limping around like he was the week before with that quad injury, so I think that was good news. But he was only 12 of 22. 123 yards, and he threw an interception. Missed a couple downfield that really could have helped pad that Iowa score, make things more comfortable, and get them over those 25 points that they got to get over. I mean, we talk about this every week. They scored less points this week than they did week 1. They have yet to go over 25 points like they say they have to. Patterson, the running back, hard runner, 86 hard-earned yards on the ground. But I'll tell you this, and again, this is another thing we discussed on our live podcast on Saturday. In case you missed it, I'm going to tell you again. There was a point in the 3rd quarter where I actually thought the Iowa offense was looking pretty interesting. Like Brian Ferentz was calling for multiple formations, a lot of creativity, sometimes no backs in the backfield, sometimes I formation, sometimes play action pass. Had a couple of completions. They were rolling, 3rd down conversions, a couple hard runs by Patterson. Patterson and Eric All, the tight end, the transfer from Michigan, fighting hard for extra yardage after a play looked like it was down, and scratching out another yard or 2. All looked good. And then it came down to that 3rd down play, pass play downfield toward the end zone, but the 2 tight ends came in, and what do? They collided. Incomplete pass. That was a mess up, and they had to settle for 3. They got to clean stuff like that up. Absolutely. And the defense looked great. There was a pick 6. So Iowa did some good things, and that was a tough battle and a rivalry and fighting tooth and nail. I'll give you the recap. Look, the Hawkeyes won the game. Congratulations. And they're 2-0, and there are a lot of teams that would love to be 2-0. You asked Matt Rhule in Nebraska if he would like to be 2-0 right now or 0-2. So Hawkeyes fans, keep that into perspective. But there were a lot of points left on the field in that game. Again, we'll continue to take your comments. You Iowa fans always hit me up with comments on Twitter and also on here on YouTube. Elsewhere around the league, Penn State kind of used Delaware as a scrimmage. They scored on 7 of the first 8 drives, 6 rushing touchdowns. They just plowed them over. Purdue, take your hat off to Purdue. They go out to Virginia Tech, which is a tough place to play. And, they play the Enter Sandman and the crowd, and it all goes nuts. It's a hard place to play. Then they had a weather delay of 5 hours and 37 minutes. You're on the road. You're in the visiting locker room, 5 hours and 37 minutes. And then you got to get back up and go out and play again. That's pretty hard. And then they won. So congratulations to them. And Ryan Walters, that's his first win as a head coach of that football team in a tough place to play. For those of you Maryland fans, did you get a little scared against Charlotte? My goodness, down 14-0 before you knew it hit you against Charlotte, only to bounce back and win 38-20. So that was good. Minnesota, they rode the boat to a 25-6 win over the weekend over Eastern Michigan for PJ Flex crew. Rutgers, a big win over Temple. That was good, 36-7. And didn't it feel good to see Northwestern win that game over UTEP 38-7. Everything that went wrong here in the offseason, it was good to see those kids rewarded a little bit and get a big win and a lot of kids scoring and having some fun. And then in case you missed it over from Friday, which seems like a month ago, Friday Night Lights, the Hoosiers got their first win of the season for Tom Allen. They beat Indiana State 41-7. Illinois lost to Kansas 34-23. Look, Illinois, squeaker against Toledo in week 1, lost to Kansas, which I said could happen. I mean, Kansas is better than you think, but not a great start for the Fighting Illini at 1-1 so far. So those are some of my thoughts from week 2. Love to hear from you on yours. I want to thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. And remember, since the college football season is here on Fridays, all the Locked On channels on YouTube, they have the live show, the Locked On College Football Kickoff live show every Friday, 11 Eastern to 1 p.m. And then it's taped in this area. You can catch it later if you want. But it's very good. I'm always participating in it as well. You can catch me on there as well on any Locked On College YouTube channel. So you don't want to miss that. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe. I told you they're going through the roof. We're getting up there. We're getting up to 3,500 with your help. I'm asking for it. Please subscribe. It's free. You just click and boom, you're in the program. You can share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten. And coming up next, we got our next weekly feature that we do, our Big Ten Top 10, my top 10 observations from around the Big Ten from the weekend as we continue right here on Locked On Big Ten. The first I want to tell you about FanDuel. Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. How about that? There's still some time for you to put some action on that Bills-Jets Monday night game, too. By the way, Bills -2 on the road on this one. Now is the best time to join FanDuel. The app is easy to use, and you can bet on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season with an offer that you don't want to miss. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. All right, so what we like to do in the beginning of the week is we always like to go ahead and take a look at my top 10 observations from the weekend. I share them with you, and you can agree or disagree. I will point out these aren't always good things. Maybe there's a bad thing that happened. We'll point that out. It's all up there. I'm going to put it on screen right now, and we're going to just kind of go right through them. At number 10 on the list, I've got Nicholas Singleton from Penn State. He rushed for 3 touchdowns. By the time you rush for 3 touchdowns, I'm going to probably have you in my top 10 of the events over the weekend. At number 9, a shout out to Nebraska fans. Look, that game in Colorado, there was a lot of hype around that game. That was the toughest ticket to get in sports over the weekend. And guess what? It was 40% red out there in Colorado. Good job. You guys traveled. You bought up all the tickets. Maybe it was on the secondary market. Maybe it was with our Game Time app. But nevertheless, good job. You guys almost filled half of that football stadium out there in Boulder. All right, at number 8, the Iowa Hawkeyes, Sebastian Castro with a pick 6. I think Iowa leads all of college football with pick 6s. Not only the interceptions, but go ahead and score over the last 5 years. Just an incredible job by the defense. And without that pick 6, maybe you don't win the Cyhawk Trophy. But good job there, Sebastian. At number 7. I'm going to shout out to the Purdue Boilermakers. Again, they win after the almost 6-hour weather delay out there at Virginia Tech. Ryan Walters getting his first win. At number 6 on our list, Nebraska quarterback problems. Look, that's going to be a story that is going to continue to be developed. We're going to continue to discuss it right here on this podcast. At number 5 on the list, Roman Wilson. Let's give him a shout out. Scored 2 touchdowns for the Michigan Wolverines. J.J. McCarthy hitting him twice. And he scored 3 last week. So in the season opener, he's got 5 touchdowns already. Deserves a shout out at number 5 on our top 10 list. Also at number 4, speaking of J.J. McCarthy, In 2 games this year, he has completed 87% of his passes. It's unreal. I'm starting to think Jim Harbaugh was onto something when he said it's a generational quarterback. By the way, 1 more game left on the suspension for Jim Harbaugh. At number 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. with that tremendous performance against Youngstown State this weekend, finally getting back into being and doing what Marvin Harrison Jr. does. At number 2, revenge on Wisconsin. This is a story we're going to talk about a little bit more during the week, how Washington State was just out there out west waiting for them, just waiting for them, wanting their revenge on the big old Big Ten that destroyed their Pac-12, and Wisconsin was the first Big Ten team they had a chance to take it out on. I think that's exactly what happened this past weekend. And at number 1 in my Big Ten top 10 for the weekend, the Mel Tucker story. Mel Tucker being suspended as the head football coach at Michigan, which we led off this podcast with, and we will continue as this story develops through the weeks and the weeks coming ahead. So that's the latest. That's a look right there. My Big Ten top 10, our week 2 storylines around the Big Ten. Hope you enjoyed those, and I hope you enjoyed this podcast as well. I want to thank all of you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day. Tell your friends about it. Tell your Big Ten alumni friends, whoever. Tell them about us. Welcome them into our club. We have a lot of fun here, and we like kind of growing together. You guys are helping us make this thing grow lightning fast. So we'll have more reaction on the Mel Tucker story as the week continues. So make sure you check that out. And in addition to that, many ways for you to get in touch with me at Talk Big Ten on Twitter. You've seen on the bottom the scroll here, talkbig10.com. That's our new website. And again, it's the number 10, talkbig10.com, just like our Twitter, talkbig10 number 10. We always use the number 10 instead of TEN. So check that out as well. And of course, your comments here on YouTube are always welcome. Always. In fact, I was going through those today, checking them out and answering as many as I could. I always appreciate that. Never take those for granted. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten right now, and on your favorite podcast app, wherever you get your apps, and wherever you get your podcasts, I should say. And make sure you get the latest Locked On Big Ten podcast whenever it's available every day. First thing in the morning, we release them out. So you can also check out our Locked On Sports Today podcast for the latest on everything else going on in sports. And there's so much going on. Want you to have a great day. Thanks for checking us out. Can't wait till we talk again. I'm Craig Shemon for Locked On Big Ten.